Welcome back to Spar&Brawl. I hope you're having a decent day. As always, I'm joined by my co-host Sam, and this video is going to be a France brief. So we have a couple of short news segments concerning France, including Sarkozy, the former French president, going to jail, and Macron, the current president, who is going to be running for re-election in April, pinning the left and the right together in the hopes of emerging victorious. But before that, I wanted to start with this breaking news story that came out today, which is unfortunately not very surprising in a way, but it's always good to have some facts and figures behind it, and maybe some change will come from it. But pretty much a report has come out documenting that there are thousands of pedophiles active in French Catholic Church since the 1950s. So I'm just going to read a few short paragraphs from France 24, who got some exclusive information in advance, which have been shared with other news organizations, of course. But the report itself, I mean, at the time of this recording, hasn't been published yet. There's supposed to be a big press release. So here are just a few paragraphs from France 24. Some 3,000 pedophiles have operated inside the French Catholic Church since 1950, the head of an independent commission investigating the scandal told AFP. The commission's research uncovered between
since
1950. The commission's research uncovered between 2,900 and 3,200 pedophile priests or other members of the church, said Jean-Marc Sauve, adding that it was a minimum estimate. Sauve, senior French civil servant, said the report, which runs 2,500 pages, had attempted to quantify both the number of offenders and the number of victims. Olivier Savignac, head of Victims Association Parler et Revivre, which translates to Speak Out and Live Again, contributed to the probe and told the AP that the estimated number of victims in the report reaches 216,000 people, and they're primarily young men, young boys. And just a final quote from Olivier Savignac. That is devastating because the ratio between 216,000 and 3,000 is one aggressor for 70 victims. That is terrifying from the French society for the Catholic Church. And that's it. That's the end of his quote. But yes, Sam, a pretty huge kind of bombshell. I mean, the Catholic Church is used to these kind of scandals nowadays. I mean, it's nothing new, but it's just from another part of it, the focus is usually on the main Catholic Church in Rome and Italy, kind of when you hear this. Of course, everywhere, but yeah, this is on France in particular.
Yeah, no, I would say like pretty much all religious institutions have been, and I would say it's, I don't know, I think that comes down to the fact that I have no idea why, but we allow religious institutions to, I mean, because they're the only ones who are willing to pay for it, but we allow them to run orphanages and to educate children and all that, which I find to be the most, that's, I don't know, that's pretty much as close to evil as you can get. Just even educating, let's forget about the abuse, because that's a mental abuse. But anyway.
But I mean, historically, in the past few hundred years, you know, they've enjoyed a very privileged status and, you know, looked upon and all this, and it still continues in many parts of the world where they are, you know, given this kind of respect and no question. Yeah.
I mean, yeah, when your accounts are not being checked, when you're not under authority of anyone, I mean, of course, corruption and this type of activity, which I don't know even how do you classify that? It's not even corruption, it's just disgusting.
And these numbers are just the bottom of it. So if they're saying 200,000 to 300,000,
and it's always under,
so that means pretty much since the 1950s, a few 100,000 or probably a couple of million boys were raped and molested by a couple thousand priests, pretty much. I mean, you know, but yeah, I didn't have the part with the percentage of boys exactly, but I remember seeing somewhere it was primarily boys.
I mean, I think I said that about an individual. I think I said that about Kanye West, and I genuinely meant it, that if, like, what does someone have to do for medical professionals to step in and just, put you in a straitjacket. Not just they need help. A straitjacket is it's a
Yeah.
old-fashioned shitty thing, but people need help. I think psychological help. That's like I find a parallel here in like how many times an organization should like commit crimes that would put, I'm sorry to bring up this such a lame analogy, but would put Nazis to shame, really, and then get away with it with respect. With like, how is Vatican? Nobody's invading Vatican for their crime. I don't understand. Nobody, because it's so easy to invade as well. Like Italians can do it in 2 minutes, and it is it's just
Yeah,
surprise.
that's a good
It's just,
question.
it's not surprising. It's just so negative. You block it out usually. So
Yeah, but I
yeah,
mean,
what
that's
about
the kind of status and privilege that they enjoy in society right now. So they will continue
I hope this
to get
helps
away. But
to how do they say,
yeah, to burst the
make
bubble a
the
bit. But I mean, but then you have now Pope Francis now is kind of like, a good
his
guy.
damage control
Yeah,
president.
exactly. His damage controlling. Yeah, so he's
The
out there
damage
in
control
general.
pope, sorry.
Yeah.
I don't know. I doubt he's going to be. I have a feeling that the end of him is going to be very much like end of Obama. You're going to have somebody like the old
Oh
one, the
yeah.
Nazi one back, like a full-on, like a Mel Gibson, that Catholic type thing. That we are bringing back all the hateful stuff as well.
But I think you can bet money on that. I mean,
It's possible.
a good 50-70%
Because
chance that is the case. I mean,
there is
because
a bit,
first,
because the Catholic word in the more the part of Catholic world that is more conservative is growing faster.
exactly, which is Latin. Well, that's one region, but everywhere it is the case. That is
Africa
true. And Africa
and
too. Yeah.
East Asia, I think.
Yeah.
East Asia is a bit more Protestant. I think it's more evangelical. I think I know study.
Yeah.
Anyways,
But
yeah.
But like we mentioned, I haven't seen the report yet. These are just news items. So I mean, I said that I believe 70 or 80% of men, these are just news stories. So I haven't even seen that in the report. So some things might not be 100% right. But when the report comes out, we'll look through it and see if there's anything else that's worth discussing that isn't being mentioned everywhere. But yeah, so Sam, let's move on to a couple of other small stories that we have with France. Do you want to do Sarkozy first, and then we wrap up with the elections?
Sure, I have a couple of tiny ones before the elections as well. But yeah, let's just start with Sarkozy. It's a very short one, but a fun one. Sarkozy, Tony Blair of, you could argue, France, tried to move France to the right a bit, but failed. One of the bigger failures of neoliberalism in Europe. But anyway, he's famous for his
100%.
wives and corruptions and all that. Former French President, this is BBC. Former French President Nicolas Sarkozy has been sentenced to a year in prison for illegally funding his unsuccessful 2012 re-election campaign. He will not be jailed, however, and can serve his sentence at home with an electronic bracelet. Mr. Sarkozy denies any wrongdoing and says this is injustice. He said he would go right to the end to seek truth and justice. His lawyer added that he would appeal the verdict. So this is his second 1 year prison term. So literally we are now, I have, with Tony Blair thingy and this, I mean, Tony Blair thing wasn't legal, but now just every 10 years we find out the leaders 10 years ago were all crooks. That's pretty much seems to be the case.
Well, we get documentation and like legal proof 10 years later, if not.
Legal proof. Yeah, we all know. But documentation. And but he was, at the time, he was the leader of the UMP party, which was like the center right party, and at the time was a very successful party. And he ran it to the ground pretty much. So.
Yeah, and as mentioned in your quote, he didn't win re-election, which quite a few presidents are not winning re-election. I mean, right after him, the same thing happened to François Hollande, and now we shall see with Macron.
I think it was that period was the destruction of French political old parties. Just like it surprisingly didn't happen in Germany at all, but it happened in
Mm.
France and Italy. I get to that in a bit, but yeah, I think first the UMP fell apart, then socialists fell apart, and
Well,
Macron, who was himself a socialist, like he was economic advisor to Hollande, sort of seized the chance and
yeah.
get in there. Yeah,
But even
but
Germany, I mean, just very quickly, even Germany, the two main parties got less
oh,
vote than they usually do, and that when one of the far right parties did better than usual, did much better, the
it's
better than
far more
expected. Yeah.
it's far more fractured than it used to be. I
Mm.
mean, not just look at Holland, who, for example, level of consent. It was a multi-party coalition. By Holland, I meant Netherlands.
Mhm.
Sorry, but it's fractured just everywhere. You see that.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. I
And
think it's a
yeah.
global trend. Sorry, go ahead.
And just one thing, the fracturing doesn't necessarily mean that it's like being that it's right-wing takeovers only. I mean, the fracturing also involves some left here and there. Like, I mean, the Greens were
Spain.
always involved in the German party, but they did relatively okay this time again, and they'll be
Yeah,
part of the coalition.
Spain and Five-Star Movement in Italy are arguably more left-wing and they got some power. But I
Yeah.
would say though, whenever things get fractured or more chaotic, in my bet would be on the right wingers. Just
Mhm.
I don't agree with anything, but they tend to they hit below the belt, so to
Yeah.
speak. So you are always surprised. Yeah. So, but I have a couple of two tiny
Yeah,
and
go
smaller
ahead,
news regarding France and stuff.
please.
So yeah, French elections are heating up, and there is increasing rhetoric against French immigrants from Africa, especially, and all that. So that's bad. And there was a concrete action by France. This is again from BBC. Anger as France slashes visas for Algeria, Morocco, and Tunisia. So three countries that have historical ties with France, and and a lot of people obviously especially Algeria and Morocco have reacted with anger to France's decision to slash the number of visas to their citizens. So that's Foreign Minister Ammar Belani, Algerian Foreign Minister, told the news agency APS that France's decision was disproportionate and unjustified. So completely understandable. I don't know if it's more about economy or if it's more about um, uh, sorry, what do you call it? It's more about economy or more about election. The fact that the election is getting closer and Macron, which we'll get into, is trying to outflank both right and the left.
Hmm.
So this may be to do with that, more to do with economy or any real policy. But yeah, that was a important news. Also, there is a growing row which I didn't quite understand between Macron, France, sorry, and Algeria and Mali. So Macron attacked Algeria over situation in Mali, which is regarding former diplomat Mohamed Zitouri, an official in an Algerian opposition movement, has said that the main reason for Emmanuel Macron's attack on Algeria is the situation in Mali, which apparently in Mali there is a conflict going on. Am I correct? I don't know if you've heard about that, and France is heavily involved in that.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I mean, I haven't followed it recently, but I mean, I believe they sent troops and everything, and it was even back in François Hollande's time, and like they even had a
Oh,
time where
that yeah, yeah.
I believe so, and they like celebrated like they did defeat some kind of terrorist organization. Kind
Oh
of
yeah,
remember, if I'm remembering everything correctly,
oil.
François Hollande was on people's soldiers' shoulders and like running down streets and stuff, but I don't think I don't think their engagement is
No,
over though, or
oh, so sorry. I thought you may. There was that was I think Al Shabaab or one of these
yeah.
groups that took over an oil facility and all that. No, recently Mali announced plans to use Russian troops.
Okay.
I believe Russian troops to replace French troops for in some areas in Sahel for security reasons, and that led to heavy criticisms from France and all that. But although it's quite interesting that in news articles it's always described as Russian mercenaries, French
Yeah.
troops.
No.
So if you're Russian, you're like you don't belong to a state.
Yeah.
You're either in mafia or mercenary. That's the only two jobs. Like in whole of I've been to Russia. There is no like shopkeeper, like somebody making clothes or
Yeah.
no. Everybody is an oligarch. But yeah, this is something we should get into like a deep dive. But I thought I mentioned it
Yeah.
that generally speaking, French African relations are partially maybe due to election, partially due to changing world is getting
No, I was
worse.
hearing a bit of that, and I shouldn't really speak out of terms right now because I haven't followed this story. But the same dynamics you hear in Central African Republic, that's whenever they're like France or anybody withdraws a bit, the Russians quickly try and go and like jump in that gap, and then the same language always comes out as if they were doing something different.
This is a scramble for Africa 2.0, probably this time as a farce, I hope, as they say. Anyways.
But okay, what else did you have? Continue, please.
So I think last thing about France is the election stuff, right? So this is, do you want to read that quote? Because we couldn't find a specific source except France 24, which mentioned it.
And just to bear in mind, so the actual elections are in April, and these are the primaries pretty much, and there are a lot of parties. I think there are at least 6 or 7 parties or more.
Oh, way more.
Right now.
6 major ones.
Yeah, competing. So this is just a quote that we got from France 24, and they cite some polls, but we haven't actually seen the polls. And so the host said that the left is splintered, with the latest polls showing that all leftist candidates combined enjoy less support than the far right. Now, of course, this gives a general idea. It doesn't mean that in elections how it will go and vote this, vote and that, all those come into play. But I mean, it still says a lot.
Yeah, I agree. It's not good. It's not a good sign. But yeah, I was reading articles that it seems like more, and I saw some videos. They described that Macron's strategy seems to be trying to splinter the left and the right, splinter the left and the right at the same time, outflank them wherever he can. In what do they mean? As in splinter them, as in try to basically shore up, different, try to, not focus on one enemy. So, you shore up your own enemies in a way. So that's one strategy. Another strategy is that, for example, in terms of whenever he can internally outflank the left, which I haven't seen any indication he can or has done any of that so far. His budget, his recent budget came to major criticism. So I don't know how he's doing that. But on the right, I would say the things we discussed earlier, the immigration stuff, his increasingly harsh tone towards Turkey, towards Russia. Not that they don't deserve it or they reply in kind, but I would think he's trying to outflank the right, because according to most polls right now, Le Pen would be the most likely candidate against him at the moment. So, but again, I would say, as some reporters were saying, that it is very risky business. His party is very new. His opinion polls are not great. They're still ahead of Le Pen and everybody else, but they're not great. And there are a couple of his former, I believe, prime minister or something are also seem to be making moves. So I would say he's playing a risky game and the whole thing is so risky because the whole Europe now, is with Olaf Scholz, Merkel gone. Now Guardian, a lot of people are saying there's a 3-way fight over the leadership of Europe between Mario Draghi, the Prime Minister of Italy, and Olaf Schulz, and of course the most ambitious possibly and the most willing for the job, Emmanuel Macron. So I don't know, he's playing a risky game with the right, I think. And this is the game that actually Sarkozy, who mentioned, kind of lost in the end. So we'll see.
Yeah. I mean, and I'm guessing Macron has some experience now, because the dynamics were relatively similar. I believe at the end it was Macron versus Le Pen in his first election. And I think that's the best that Marie Le Pen had done. And I don't believe her father had her father ever done that well. Yeah. Okay.
Came with Chirac early
okay.
2000. Yeah. And that was the first time that French also got the same disease that I think it belongs to Iran and Anglo world, that if you don't vote in this election, it's everything is important. Like it was all over in French thing that, oh, this is if Le Pen, the father Le Pen. That was the first time I think with Chirac. And he was, by the way, he was worse. Not that his daughter is any better. Like, yeah, it is. She's slightly better. Like he was fucking, oh wow, he was anti-Semite, anti-Muslim, anti-black. He was like, I think he was anti-humanity. But yeah, just a couple of people he knew he really liked.
Yeah, but okay, nice stuff. Anything else? Or I think that's it.
No, that's it on the French.
Yeah, nice. Okay, so we'll see. Yeah, so we'll follow these elections relatively closer and closer as we get close to the to the actual election date in April. And yeah, and keep our eyes out for this whole pedophilia report and see if anything else comes out when the actual report and the press conference happen. But okay, thank you very much for watching. Please like and subscribe and leave your comments, questions, criticisms, everything else down below, and we'll make sure to get to them. Thank you and see you in our next video.